Hello, welcome to another edition of Curtis Jones Writing. I'm reading each chapter out of each of the books that I've published. So we're up to chapter 6 today in Love Endures All Things, book 2, uh, Across the Creek is the subtitle of this one. It's when we lived off grid for about 8 years, and this talks to that. This is chapter 6, Kindness of Strangers. So let's get started. As we prepared for winter, we were very busy getting the house ready so as to be comfortable in the cold weather. As we worked toward that end, the unforeseen happened one night while I was at work. I injured my left knee bad enough to need a total knee replacement. I had to quit work because I couldn't walk anymore. I didn't think about workers' compensation laws, never even entered my mind. And no one advised me to look into that. I was unable to do the chores required to live in an incomplete house as well. Just then, our neighbor decided to go to California on a business trip, and he came to the house and asked if we would live in their house until they returned the next summer. We were so very happy to have that opportunity, and we prayed a prayer of thanksgiving that night. Within 2 days, they uh, brought the house key to us and took us over to show us through the place. They gave us all of the information they thought we needed to live there. They also gave us a phone numbers to contact them just in case. I was working at a steel processing plant in Fort Smith when I hurt myself at work one night. I had an orthopedic surgeon I had been seeing before I got hurt. I was having just a little difficulty with the left knee for weeks, and I was talking to him about what should be done for it. So when I got hurt, I went to him for help. He said I needed a total knee replacement. He said I would not walk again until it was done. I asked him to set a date for it after workers' compensation responded. I asked him to apply for workers' compensation to pay for it. I went back to see him in about a month. Pardon me. I gotta excuse me. Went back to see him in about a month. Oh, see if I can find where I'm at. Uh, he told me he was not going to say that I was hurt at work because he considered it a pre existing condition. I argued with him that I was able to walk before the accident and I could not walk after that. We had to use my wife's insurance to pay for the surgery. She had very good insurance, and she had carried me on hers because I was cheaper. It was cheaper than my insurance was. The surgery went well, and I was going through therapy because it was not a workers' compensation case. I had no income. We lived on Stephanie's income at that time. He and I went round and round every time I saw him. I had just about had it with him. Pardon me. When I went in for a regular check. I think I'm going to sneeze again. Excuse me. dried my throat out. We'll see how that goes. When I went in for a regular checkup, I was placed in a large room with about 10 examining tables in this room lining the wall. I was the one, I was on the second table as he entered the room full of patients. Every table had a patient on it. He took the file, pardon me. He took the file from the nurse and read to himself, and I watched him closely. I realized he didn't know who his patient was without reading his name. Our insurance had just given him $25,000 for the operation, and we were notified they'd done that. I thought it should have been paid by my employer's workers' compensation insurance company. I was not a happy camper that day. When he finished with the first patient, I was next. He surely did not expect what happened next. The nurse took the file of the first patient and handed him my file. I'm sure she knew my name. Before he even looked at my file, I asked him who I was. He started to look at the file, and I said to him, I just got uh, I just got you $25,000. Pardon me, and you don't even know my name, do you? He turned every color but purple. I said, go ahead and look at it because I would like to think I meant more to you than just a dollar sign. After that day, good grief. After that day, I was put into a private examining room. I don't think I could have made a bigger impression on him than that. I'm sure all the other 9 patients and their helpers noticed what had happened because they were all looking our way. Shortly after that event, we had a visit from the FBI at the house that we were living in. It was the nice neighbor's house that went to California. I was staying home and had been for some time. None of my clothes fit me, and I'm sure I looked like a skinny bum. I only weighed 125 pounds. I had lost 100 pounds while I was in such pain from the injury of the knee over the 6 months before the operation. I invited all 3 of them in to the house, and the other 2 looked around the place. There was 5 of them. There was a big enclosed building out in front of the house. I had looked through it before we moved in. It was full of growing pots and plant food and other things you might find in a greenhouse operation. The federal officers said they were the nice neighbors, said that the nice neighbors had a greenhouse set up in front of the house where they raised marijuana for sale in California. Still, I loved the kindness of the strangers, but he was not the only stranger that brought us such great blessings while we were there. While I was unable to work or even walk, many of the native peoples that lived in the area offered to make the payment on our place for us as long as we needed help. I was so touched by that. You almost never find that kind of kindness, no matter where you live. When we bought the place, the folks in Fort Smith warned us not to move out there. They said that all that lived out there were drunkards and people that would shoot at white people who stay there overnight. They were so nice that I never told any of those who were prejudiced against the Native Americans in Fort Smith. After all, my family history is full of Native Americans. The FBI allowed us to stay for 3 more months, so we got our house finished to the point that we were comfortable before we moved back. The two oldest boys would come to visit and stay at the laundry room or in the laundry room. I'm sorry, let me read that again. The two oldest boys would come to visit and say that the laundry room smelled like weed or like marijuana. They thought the owners had dried the marijuana in the dryer. Stephanie and I had never smelled what it smelled like, so we were not aware of it. We had become very fond of our place. It was so quiet and peaceful. Before we left Fort Smith, we had policemen running through our yards chasing bad guys and telling us to stay inside. That was the reason for finding a place so far out. But when you move to the wilderness, you pay a certain price. The kids that lived at home, Michelle and Curtis, my youngest son, our daughter, rode a school bus. Michelle went to Muldrow High School. Curtis went to Bellefonte Elementary School. The teachers at both schools had dealt with folks who had lived across this creek before and knew what to expect. If the creek came up too high for the bus to cross, the kids were excused from their absences. They still had to make up their assignments. After a couple of years, both schools decided that the bus would not cross the creek to pick up the kids anymore. That was about the time I got a fiberglass boat, and we learned to use it to cross the creek when it was deep. The fiberglass boat was very heavy. When the creek went low enough to drive across my pickup, I had to bring the boat home. We learned if we left it at the low water bridge, some of the young people would play in the creek. When they were through, they left it float downstream. We would have to walk downstream or down the creek and hunt for the boat to get it back to the creek crossing. That became very tiring. So we had to get the kids across the creek before the bus came, and they came about a half an hour apart. One went to Muldrow, and the other went only about 5 miles from the house to Bellefonte School. After Michelle left and got married, is when we got the very light aluminum boat, and it was a great blessing. I had to constantly repair the fiberglass on the old boat, and it always leaked water. The new boat was easy to handle in the fast running water as well as on dry land, but we were always looking for an easier way. to use the boat in fast running water was hard to learn, but we had no real choice if we were going to come and go in a timely fashion. To cross the creek when it was running fast, you must paddle upstream about 50 foot. That way, when you start out into the fast water, running water, that would carry you downstream quite rapidly. You would not have to paddle back upstream to come out where the road came out of the water. That was a hard won lesson that the boys were much slower to learn than Stephanie and I were. It was a funny thing to watch them struggle with the current that we had already discovered. We laughed many times uh, through seeing them, though they thought they knew how to paddle a boat and didn't want any instructions on how to get across the creek. We watched as they would try to paddle straight across and end up maybe 50 foot downstream in a thick brush. Often they had to get out of the boat and wade back upstream, pulling the boat behind them. Very funny. You have to understand, boys 20 years old really think they know what's going on and don't feel like they need any kind of instruction. I hope you enjoyed this story. Next presentation, I'll be doing chapter 7, The Creatures of the Wilderness. I hope you come back for that. It's an enjoyable story. Uh, if you like what I'm doing, you could go, and you get in a hurry, you could go to my web page, which is curtis-jones-books.squarespace.com, and they have a link that'll take you to Amazon, and you could get my books in ebook or in paperback. This is the paperback, and read ahead if you like. If you could also go to my Facebook page, which is Curtis Jones Author page at Facebook. It has connections also to Chili. That's okay. It has connections also to links also to Amazon, so that you can come here. Oh yeah, so that you can acquire the books yourself. Uh, I hope you enjoyed our time together. I know I did. Uh, God bless you and take care, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye bye.